Hello. Thank you for joining me for Forgiveness and Compassion, a presentation brought to you by Rimbey-Ponoka Neighborhood Place. This program is for families, for community members, for friends, for couples, for teachers, students, anyone who is interested in the concepts of forgiveness and compassion. It is abridged from a larger program called Choose Love, which is a free program available online. And here we have created it in a larger deliverable presentation for individuals, families, and groups. The definition of forgiveness. It is the conscious choice to let go of anger, resentment, harsh feelings that you might be holding toward yourself or toward someone else. It is a decision, an intentional decision to surrender thoughts of revenge and to move forward with your own personal power intact. Forgiveness is difficult. It takes an incredible amount of strength, courage, and compassion. What forgiveness is or is not. Let's start with what it is not. It is not saying that what the other person has done is okay. It is also not necessarily reconciling the relationship or the friendship. It's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that the other person will accept forgiveness. It's not a guarantee that the other person won't repeat the behavior that they did that caused you to feel upset. It's also not a guarantee that the other person will also do any forgiving. Here's what it is. It is your own decision, our own decision, to let go of bitterness, to let go of that cycle of resentment, thoughts of revenge, even the ruminating cycle that we get into where we think of better comebacks for next time. It is a practice of compassion, a practice of letting go of the claws of anger that we allow to sink into ourselves that affect our behavior, it affects our feelings, it affects our treatment of other people and other relationships in our lives. And because of that, the decision to forgive is healing. The decision to forgive is good for your health. It benefits your immune system even, for many reasons that we'll continue to talk about. It also benefits your self-esteem. It's an incredible amount of power to allow someone else to affect your feelings, your emotions, your sleep habits, your eating habits. And that's why forgiveness is so important. And that's why it is so empowering for the person that does the forgiving. And it's also a catalyst, an opportunity for post-traumatic growth. So not just recovery, not just being resilient and bouncing back to the baseline that we were before, but we learn and grow from it so that we actually develop beyond the baseline we were before the forgiveness happened. How do we know when we're angry? What signs does our body tell us? It could be a red face, it could be feeling warm, it could be tension in the muscles, tension in the facial muscles, which causes a tight jaw, also causes some pretty angry expressions, and that comes through in the voice. It could be headaches, it could be gut issues, so indigestion, butterflies, nausea, or even worse, even ulcers, other problems that happen in the gut. Question for you. Can you make a good choice when you're angry? The answer is no, and I'm going to show you why on the next slide. Well, here's your brain. This is from Paul MacLean's model of the brain. Now, it's simplified because this isn't biology, but I really want to give you an idea of what happens in your brain, and especially what happens in our brains when we get mad. So our brainstem, down the back, that's our survival brain. It is in charge of, well, what keeps you alive. It's why we don't have to try to breathe. It just happens. It's why we don't have to try to digest. It just happens. It also is what helps us know what's safe and what isn't. The fight, flight, or freeze response happens there. Our midbrain through the center here, that's our limbic system, our emotional brain. So this is what drives us toward connection. Why connection means survival, and why we're so drawn to it. Am I loved? Am I connected? Do I have a support system? But then emotional responses as well happens there. Now our executive brain, our prefrontal cortex, that's what you see in green there. It's the third diagram. That part of our brain is the human thinking brain. It's the brain that helps us assess risk. It's the brain that helps us make conscious, thought-out decisions, understanding the outcomes and consequences of those decisions. This part of our brain takes the longest to develop. In humans, this takes 24 to 28 years to develop. That's why we don't assess risk very well when we're young, and we kind of do things without thinking. It's because this part of our brain is still developing. Now, no matter how old we are, no matter how developed we are, this part of our brain goes through a funny thing when we get really upset, when we get very scared, hurt, embarrassed even, angry. Whenever those really strong emotions come up, that thinking part of our brain shuts right down. And all of the resources go into the emotional brain and the brainstem. Fight, flight, or freeze takes over. If we were all in the same room, I might ask this question. Show of hands, who in the room has done or said something they didn't mean when they were mad? Chances are 100% of people are going to put up their hands. And anybody that does not put up their hands is probably lying or delusional, unfortunately, because we all go through this issue when strong emotions happen. We all lose our faculty for making conscious decisions that are well thought out and have been put through a risk analysis. We don't do that well when we're upset because that part of our brain isn't what's taken over. It's our fight, flight, or freeze survival brain, and that does not help us make good decisions for relationships. Here's another thing that makes forgiveness difficult. A little thing we do called rumination. Rumination happens when we focus on something negative, maybe something that happened recently, yesterday, last week, 4 years ago, grade 4, but we ruminate on it. We replay it in our head again and again, and we focus on things that we don't like. Here's a way to put this into perspective. Just for easy math, let's say that 100 things happen to us in a day. 97 of them are everyday normal things. You got up, you got dressed, you had breakfast, you got ready for school or work or whatever it is that you're doing. You talk to people, you get your groceries, you have lunch, you do the things you do. 97 of them, everyday normal things. And 2 things out of the 100 are really positive things. You accomplished something that you've been trying to do, and you had a really great experience with a friend. 2 really good things. And then 1 bad thing happens. 1 thing that gets on your nerves, gets under your skin. 1 bad thing. So that's 1% of your day. If I were to ask you what you think about while you're trying to go to bed at night, or what you spend most of your time thinking about, is it the 97 okay everyday things, the good things, or is it that 1 bad thing? Chances are, most of the time, most people would say, oh, I focus on the 1 bad thing. I think about that time I was embarrassed, or I think about that time my friend snapped at me and hurt my feelings, or I think about that time my significant other made a mistake. Whatever the case may be, often people focus on that 1 bad thing. There's actually a really good reason for that, and it's not that we're altogether negative exactly. not that we're bad people. It's that we are problem solvers. We live, thrive, and survive by solving problems. In order to solve problems, we have to notice them and identify them. So this works for us. This helps us learn. However, we accidentally get stuck on it. It's something that we all do by accident, but it really does negatively impact our relationships and our ability to forgive. The other funny thing about our brains is our brains can't tell time. Say, for example, something hurtful happened to you 2 years ago. And if you were to think about it, you might notice that you're going under physiological changes as if that thing is happening right now. That's because our powers of visualization, our own imagination, is so powerful that we almost trick our brain into believing that that painful or uncomfortable thing that happened in the past is here and now, when that is not actually the case. That's rumination. And when we do that, it makes it very difficult to be forgiving because we attribute that person with those traits that they had in the past here and now. And that's not fair because as people, we change, we grow, and we learn. But also as people, we have to give people room and permission to change and grow and learn. When we ruminate on that one bad thing, we create it as if it's something present, and it isn't. It's something past. And when we allow it to take over our hearts and our minds, but then also our behaviors, that's a problem. And that's why being full of gratitude and being willing to be forgiving is so important. The negativity bias. We all sort of fall prey to this. It's that unfortunate thing left over that maybe once helped us survive, but we're not often worried about getting eaten by a predator. However, we're still prone to look for and solve problems, and that means we notice them. And this affects all of our relationships, even our relationships with our own children. For example, let's say for a second all of our children are here with us, and they're all behaving quite well. They're getting along, they're even sharing. Chances are, not many parents would intervene with that behavior. Not many parents would pay attention to that behavior. On the flip side, if we have a whole bunch of children with us, all of our kids are here, and they're not really getting along. No one's getting hurt, but they're definitely being annoying. Chances are many parents, the majority of parents, would step in because we are programmed to notice problems so that we can solve them. The downside to that is we accidentally communicate what's important with what we pay attention to. So if we communicate to our children that their behavior that is annoying is more important than their behavior that is what we would assume was good, that's an accident. That is an accidental communication, that's the behavior that drives the connection. And remember, kids are seeking connection because for humans, connection means survival. And so they identify connection with attention. And so that goes back to this negativity bias. We accidentally ignore good things in our life, good things in our relationship, but if we mess up or if someone messes up, we notice that. And then we attribute that one mess up to be their whole personality. This is part of what makes forgiveness so difficult. But this is why forgiveness is important. And this is where gratitude starts to come in. Why gratitude is so important to the process of forgiveness, but the process of building and maintaining friendships and relationships altogether. The negativity bias means that we might notice things that our friends do that are hurtful, that are embarrassing, that are annoying, and we'll notice that, but we might accidentally ignore all the things about them that are great and that drew us to that friendship in the beginning. This is why gratitude is so important for relationships. Again, forgiveness is not about accepting that whatever the other person did or what we ourselves has done is right. It is about freeing ourselves from the effect of that rumination, the effects of negative emotions that come from hanging on to hurt or grudges. It absolutely does not mean that the other person has won. In fact, it's completely the opposite. When we are ruminating on an issue and we allow a hurt that has happened in our life to affect every part of us. So here's an example. If we have been hurt by a friend, we might allow it to affect how we treat our other friends because it might show up in our facial expressions or in our voice tone. It might also affect the quality or amount of our sleep because that might be that one thing that keeps you up. It might affect what we eat, how much we eat, how little we eat, what our food choices are. That is a lot of power to build into something that might be a misunderstanding. So forgiveness is not really for the other person. In fact, sometimes the other person might not even be aware that you're holding a grudge. What forgiveness is, it is freeing yourselves from the effects. Forgiveness cannot happen without compassion. Compassion for others, but also compassion for yourself. But this also means taking the time to find out what's behind or underneath that anger or that behavior. All right, I have this to illustrate this. Anger mountain. So often when there's a hurt or uncomfortable feeling going on, we build this big, jagged, rocky, angry mountain around us to scare off other people or even injure other people. But what's underneath it is usually a very harmful emotion. It could be loneliness, frustration, it could be irritation, insecurity, jealousy, worry, anxiety, all of these uncomfortable feelings. Now, I could fix this, but I'm not going to. I have confusion on here twice, and this speaks to my own personality. Anger comes up for me when I feel confused about something. When I feel like I'm just not getting something, it is extremely uncomfortable for me, and so anger comes in to take over for that uncomfortable feeling. So I was very, very angry to my high school math teacher, and I'm really sorry, Mr. Gorbachev. Fear is another big one. Fear of missing out, fear of betrayal, fear of not fitting in, fear of making a mistake, fear of appearing weak is a big one. These are the uncomfortable emotions that we bring anger in to cover up, to keep us safe from. But anger doesn't really keep us safe. It's kind of a ploy, really. I don't know if that's the right word, but it comes in, yes, it comes in to keep us from feeling that uncomfortable feeling, but it definitely doesn't fix the problem, and it almost always causes more problems. Understanding this is important in relationships because when we are experiencing that from other people, it's hardly ever what it appears to be, but understanding that underneath all of those big bad behaviors is someone with a hurt heart. That is what makes forgiveness possible. Understanding that underneath and behind those behaviors is someone who is experiencing really tough emotions. And when that someone is young, they might not even realize what that emotion is. They might be able to tell you that they have a headache or a stomach ache or that their muscles hurt, but they might not be able to tell you that they're feeling overwhelmed or that they are experiencing loneliness. And right now, in this year, we are all experiencing loneliness. It's a very, very isolating time. And there is a lot of anger going around. We're all experiencing that. And so forgiveness is something that we should be sprinkling everywhere, because underneath that anger is one of these really uncomfortable, really scary emotions. One thing to remember is that someone else's behavior is not about you. It is always about them, because that anger is coming in to cover up one of these emotions. They might not even be aware of what that emotion is, and that's why it's so important to wait until we're all cooled off before talking, because as you'll remember, our prefrontal cortex shuts right off when these emotions get high, and we all go into the fight, flight, or freeze, sometimes all three, and that does not make for good communication. So when that anger mountain starts building, that's the time to cool down, practice breathing, go for a walk, meditate, use heart math, whatever it is that works for you in your life. That's the time for that, to reset your brain, making sure that all those synapses are firing, all the parts of your brain are working, so that when you're ready to communicate, that you are doing it with risk assessment, and that you are not using fight, flight, or freeze tendencies, but really thinking through your words and actions. Yes, that is a potato. I'm going to tell you a story. So there's these two students, and they got in a fight with their friend, and they are mad. They are really mad, seething mad, and their friend is not making up for what they did. These students really want to fix this problem, so they go talk to a teacher. As you know, teachers are very wise. So they go to their teacher and they tell them the problem. And they say, we need you to fix this. We need you to make this right. We need you to punish them. The teacher nods their head. That teacher can understand that these kids are really upset and that they really want some help dealing with this problem. So the teacher says, I'll be right back, leaves for a little while, comes back with boiled potatoes. In one of each of the students' hands, that teacher places a boiled potato and said, you must keep this with you. You must take it to school. You must take it to hockey. You must take it home. Take it to dance. Take it to ringette. Take it wherever you are, that potato goes. And you come back in a few weeks and you see me. Well, those students are very confused. That doesn't make any sense to them, but they really trust their teacher, so they do as the teacher says. In a couple of weeks, though, what starts to happen? That potato looks like this. And now they're still mad at their friend. They have a rotten potato, and now they're mad at their teacher too. So they go into that classroom and they say, this doesn't fix anything. This isn't working. You've just given us a rotten potato, and we're carrying this rotten potato everywhere. And that teacher, in their infinite wisdom, says, yes, you are carrying a rotten potato everywhere. Just like you are choosing to carry your angry grudge with you everywhere. You're taking your grudge to school. You're taking your grudge to hockey, shopping, basketball, ballet. You're taking your grudge with you wherever. You're thinking about it in bed at night. You think about it when you wake up in the morning. You think about it when you're at school. You're letting it affect your other relationships. You're letting it affect how you perceive the world around you. The only way that grudge goes away is if you put it down. If you don't put it down, you just become a rotten potato. You become so full of anger and resentment that it colors every other relationship in your life, every other experience that you have. Your self-esteem, your mental wellness, your physical wellness, all depend on your ability to let the anger go. So put down your rotten potatoes. So the question is there someone in your life that you could forgive? Is there something you should forgive yourself for? And then what are the obstacles in making that happen? A resentment or a grudge is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die or get sick from it. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work that way. Holding on to anger hurts the holder. The other person might not even be aware. And so that is so much power to give someone else over you, especially if you've been hurt by them. So that is why forgiveness is so important for your health. Speaking of your health, this is from the Mayo Clinic. The benefits of forgiveness. So yes, healthier relationships, greater spiritual and psychological well-being, anxiety, stress, hostility lowers, lower blood pressure, then fewer symptoms of depression, lower risk of alcohol and substance abuse because you've been able to forgive, because you've been able to let go of anger and resentment. You're not going to be turning to those substance vices anymore. So there are some books on here. I will write those down in the description below as well. This video won't play in this format, at least I don't think that it will. So I will link in the description to this video because it really illustrates why and how gratitude, we're flipping to gratitude now, why gratitude makes you feel happier, and that can actually affect your health. It goes through a series of people who are asked about someone that they're grateful for in their lives, and they're asked to write a letter to this person, and then they're surprised by having to phone and read that letter to those people. And it's really quite beautiful, and while it doesn't work in this context, I really want you to see it. So do make sure to pause or at least watch it when you're finished watching this video. The gratitude definition. This is a conscious effort to notice what we like about our life, our environment, our families, our friends, our surroundings, and consciously, mindfully be thankful for it, be grateful for it. And this can be anything. We often might say, or even hear someone else say, "Oh, I have a headache, that's terrible." But how often do you hear someone say, "I don't have a headache, that's awesome"? It doesn't often happen because we're not prone to noticing it, because there's no problem to be solved. But that's where gratitude comes in, when we can say, "Hey, I feel pretty good. That's awesome. That's great. I'm really grateful for that." Or, "I learned something new today. I'm really grateful for that." Or whatever it is that makes sense in your life, that makes you happy, those 97 things that you might have accidentally ignored, and sometimes even the 2 good things that we accidentally ignore, those become more important. When we stop to focus on what's going well and really mindfully, intentionally put our attention on it and put importance on it, pay attention to it, a couple of things start happening. We literally feel happier, but our relationships get better. If we start noticing everything our friends and family are doing well, their self-esteem goes up, their connection to you is strengthened. That's how it works. That's how gratitude works. And it's not hard. It's actually wonderful to practice gratitude. If you watched that video that I linked, and I hope that you did, this is really shown. And if we spend a little bit of time thinking about and recording, sure, journaling is great. If we write down what we're grateful for, but if we have someone in our lives that we're grateful for, they've shown us something, supported us, taught us something, even modeled something for us, and we express that to them, that's amazing. It will feel amazing for you. It will feel amazing for them. It will strengthen your connection. It will strengthen their self-esteem and then yours. It is only benefit. And this is the antidote to the negativity bias that I talked about earlier. This is, in fact, the only antidote to the negativity bias. So it is very important, and so important when we're thinking about forgiveness, is having gratitude. This is from The Happier Human. Now, The benefits of gratitude go on and on and on and affect every area of our lives. Emotionally, we just feel better. We're more relaxed. We are more resilient because we've focused on what's going well. We will become less envious of other people because we will consciously, mindfully be taking inventory of what's going well with us, what our strengths are, what we like about ourselves, our behavior, our abilities, our relationships, and our environment. And because of that, we will make happier memories. Socially, well, it's honestly just really nice to be around people who have gratitude, people who show and behave with gratitude. And because of that, people who practice gratitude have deeper relationships, have more friendships. They are kinder because they're happier. Because if you watch that video, they prove that gratitude makes you happy. Not happiness makes you grateful, right? It goes one way. It's not happy people who are grateful. It's grateful people who are happy. This translates into our career or our school careers. And this translates into our health as well. Because when we have that negative bias going on strong in our minds and our hearts, it affects our food choices, how much and what quality of sleep we have. And that affects the kind of energy that we have and how we feel in our bodies. It even affects our immune system. And we all need a healthy immune system right now. And this even goes into our very personalities. When we are focused on what's going well, when we are focused on having gratitude for the things around us, it increases our self-esteem. It increases our ability to be happy, to be more optimistic, and that just affects everything. Gratitude is practice. It takes conscious effort to notice what's going well and really pay attention to that. But here's what Harvard Health has to say. Gratitude is strongly and consistently associated with greater happiness. That in itself is enough. Gratitude helps people feel more positive emotions, relish good experiences, improve their health, deal with adversity, and build strong relationships. Here's another one. Gratitude is an antidote to negative emotions, a neutralizer of envy, hostility, worry, and irritation. It is savoring. It is not taking things for granted. It is present-oriented. That's from the How of Happiness, a scientific approach to getting the life you want. Now, yeah, it is a neutralizer. It is an antidote. It is the antidote to that negativity bias that we default to. It is an antidote to the grudges that we hold on to, the rumination that we cycle through our brains. Lastly, gratitude is not the result of things that happen to us. It is the attitude we cultivate by practice. Yes, it takes practice. Yes, it takes work. But it is not nearly as hard as the emotions that we live without gratitude. Here's what's in it for us. Now, just spending 5 minutes a day thinking about journaling or talking about gratitude can result in a 10% increase in long-term well-being. That's pretty good. 16% fewer negative physical symptoms. That could be less headaches, less muscle aches, less indigestion. Because you're going to be feeling better, 19% more time will be spent exercising. So that further increases your mental and emotional well-being and increases your physical well-being, your cardiovascular health, even your weight. 10% less physical pain. That's again the headaches, the muscle aches and pain. So 16% fewer negative physical symptoms. That encompasses everything including digestion, and 10% less in just the pain category. And if you've ever experienced chronic pain, even 10% is a huge blessing. Now, 8% extra sleep might not seem like a lot, but 8% extra sleep coupled with 25% increased sleep quality, that's huge. That is enormous. And 17% more social capital. That means that as a person that practices gratitude, people want to be around you more. You will be happier, and people are attracted to happy people. to include them in their social circle. And because we survive by connection, that is a good thing. So I'm going to redo this slide that talked about rumination. So earlier on in this presentation, I talked about rumination and I showed you a pie chart. And I talked about the 97 things that happened to you in a day that were just everyday normal things. And those everyday normal things might look like this. Might look like, well, I got enough sleep last night. That's awesome. I woke up on time. That's a big deal. Because I was on time, I had a relaxed morning and I didn't have to rush. That made my whole day start off well. I was on time for everything today. I got to listen to my favorite music on my way to work. All the people in my life are getting along right now. And because I'm practicing gratitude, I notice that. I don't just notice when people aren't getting along. I notice when people are getting along, and that means something to me. I went for a walk. I got to spend time in nature. I had a great dinner conversation with my family. Or what is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you feel good? Those are now the everyday things that I notice. I spend time noticing, and I practice being grateful for them. Those everyday things are now the good things. And then the really good thing, I had success on a project that I've been working on for a long time. And I had a great time with my friends. Now those things that were good before are now like magic. The everyday things are now good, and the good things are now magic. And because of that, because I practiced gratitude and I really worked at noticing and acknowledging these things, that one bad thing that once affected how I felt, how I slept, how I ate, how I treated other people, that one bad thing is now no big deal. And that is the power of gratitude. Forgiveness and gratitude, they go together, and they are so, so important to our own physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being, but also in our relationships and our friendships with other people. Jim Carrey said, "Our eyes are not just viewers, they are also projectors." That means that there are two stories going on. What's happening around us, but what we notice and what we perceive. And that can be affected by gratitude. We can improve that by gratitude. We choose what we see. We choose what we react to. We choose what we hold on to. It sometimes doesn't feel like it, but it is actually true. And it goes back to that negativity bias. Jim Carrey also talked about the choice between love and fear. I'm going to link the video talking about this down below, and I do suggest you watch it because it really, really describes this in a meaningful way. All of our decisions can come down to love-based decisions and fear-based decisions. Love of ourselves, love of our families, love of our friends, love of our communities, of our organizations, whatever, love. We choose to act with love, or we can choose to act in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of missing out, fear of being betrayed, fear of being alone, fear of making a mistake, fear of appearing weak. Love or fear. We do get to decide between the two. If we make sure that we make our decisions when we're calm, we use our whole brains, and we think about other people's behavior in a lens of forgiveness, in a lens of understanding that behavior is a symptom. Remember the anger mountain. We kind of get to decide what's underneath it. While we do that, we do also remember that other people's behavior is not about us. It is about whatever tough emotion is going on under the surface. But understanding that fact is what makes forgiveness easy. And gratitude just helps everything and will continue to help everything as we practice it as individuals. And we strengthen our gratitude muscle because it does take work, but it is worth it. Thank you for watching, and please do watch the videos that I'll link in the description. I think they're really important to really tying this all together. We will have more videos like this on our YouTube channel, so do subscribe and follow so that you can see the next ones. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you, and I'm very grateful to spend this time with you.